Funny how the smallest things can turn into the biggest battles. It's one of those quiet afternoons, the kind I used to dream about when the house was full of noise. Kids running around, the dog barking, the phone ringing off the hook. And I mean a real phone, a cord that tangled if you looked at it wrong. I can still hear the rotary dial clicking back into place. Back then, there was always something to do, something to feed, some mess to clean. Now, the house is still, the clock ticks a little louder, and the cravings come out of nowhere. This time, it was pickles. I shuffled into the kitchen, knees complaining, slippers dragging, the same pair I've worn thin over the last decade. Opened the fridge and spotted the big old jar. Classic bread and butter pickles. The kind we used to pile onto cold ham sandwiches back then when lunch meant Wonder Bread, not these fancy crusty loaves everyone's craving about. I grabbed the jar, twisted it, nothing. Tried again, grunting a little louder this time. Still nothing. I paused and had to smile. This wasn't the first jar to defy me. I remembered watching my mother wrestle with a jar of applesauce when I was a kid. She'd bang it on the counter, mutter something under her breath, never anything we were allowed to repeat, and finally call my father in from the garage, where he was probably tinkering with something he never planned to fix. He'd wipe his hands on that old red shop rag, give the jar one good twist, and would pop open like magic. Then he'd wink at me and say, "That's why I'm the boss." Well, I didn't have a garage full of projects or anyone to call in. Just me and that stubborn jar. I ran the lid under hot water, wrapped a dish towel around it, tried the old butter knife tap around the edges. Nothing. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where my kids used to sit and argue over who got the last scoop of Neapolitan ice cream. Remember that? The chocolate part was always gone first, and someone would be stuck with just strawberry. I sighed and looked at the jar like it was daring me. I thought about walking next door and asking Jim, my neighbor, but I knew I'd never live it down. He'd be over here every Sunday for coffee, teasing me. "Need help with any jars today, buddy?" So I opened the infamous junk drawer. We've all got one, filled with old AA batteries, some leaking, twist ties from bread bags, a couple of clothespins even though I haven't had a clothesline since Reagan was in office, and coupons for Woolworths that expired sometime in the late 80s. And there it was, the jar opener. Bought it off a late-night commercial between reruns of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and those old-time Life Music Collection ads. They sure knew how to sell a guy. I dusted it off, figured out how to use it. Took longer than I like to admit. Clamped it on, gave it one more twist, pop. Sweet, satisfying victory. I sat there for a moment, staring at the open jar. Suddenly, I was back in my grandmother's kitchen. She'd always have a jar of sweet pickles on the table next to a glass bottle of milk and a basket of fresh rolls. We'd sit around, passing food, listening to the radio hum out the ball game. No rush, no phones buzzing, just voices, laughter, and a table full of simple things that felt important. I took a bite. The pickle was fine, but that wasn't the reward. The reward was the reminder that even now, in these quieter years, there are still little victories to be had. Still moments where you square up to something small and say, "Not today." I put the jar back in the fridge, gave it one last look, and laughed. My dad would have been proud. And next time, I'll probably do the same battle with another jar. Because honestly, and I think we all agree, it's never just about the jar. It's about proving, even to yourself, that you still got it.